I'm here today to take a stand against anti-Semitic hate speech in this country.
This is not about freedom of speech. This is actually about racism.
So it's quite confusing as to how that is allowed, how these violent and incitements of hatred is allowed.
Australian lawyer Jeremy Liebler visited a now abandoned kibbutz where people were slaughtered and taken hostage.
The very people that I went to give some strength and support to, who have endured unbearable tragedy, they turned to us and they said to us, how is the Jewish community in Australia? We've seen such terrible things on the news. I felt shame as an Australian, as a Jewish Australian.
A letter of solidarity from the Australian Jewish community. What this statement says, the Jewish community stands with the people of Israel, now and forever.
We're extremely grateful to the Australian Jewish community. This is a ray of light. We see the strength that we are getting, so we say thank you to all of you.
These results are alarming. No student should have to go to university fearful of their identity.
It's beholden on all of us, every group of us, every multicultural community, to stand up against anti-Semitism.
Over 100 protesters have gathered at Monash University in Melbourne, rallying against an event to commemorate fallen Israeli soldiers. There was a heavy police presence on the scene. Several people asked to leave the campus.
Independent survey of Jewish students that we commissioned in April 23 found that 64% of Jewish students experienced anti-Semitism firsthand. At ANU, it hit a staggering 84%. No other minority would be expected to put up with the sheer scale of hatred that we've witnessed on our campus.
Prescribed terrorist organisation.
And all of a sudden the sirens began and I realised this is something. I sort of grabbed all three of my kids out of bed and my husband, and we just ran down to the bomb shelter.
I'm curious, were there any calls to negotiate with ISIS in Syria? Were there calls to negotiate with the Taliban? Could you negotiate with Hitler? These are people, a designated terrorist organisation whose ideology is to murder Jews. It's in their charter. You don't need to look far. There will be innocent people, which is an enormous tragedy that will die when Israel needs to go in. Those deaths are on Hamas's conscience. Those deaths, Hamas hides behind civilians. They store rockets in the basements of hospitals. Where are their leaders? Their leaders are in Qatar, living in mansions. They have robbed the Palestinian people. They have stolen from them. And now they're putting their lives at risk in order to pursue their agenda of murdering Jews.
The fact that I have to sit down and explain to my children today why Jewish children are being beheaded in Israel and why Australians are chanting in the streets.
It's really sad in Australia in 2023 that this is the situation that we find ourselves in. When a protest is going to happen, that the community needs to be protected from the protester. We've seen that when people say they want to kill Jews, they want to gas Jews, they can mean it.
There's just no justification for what's gone on the last few days of dragging people through the streets and raping women.
Yes, there are a lot of videos on TikTok with violent images, violent messages that incite hate. And my message of my TikTok is peace. And so I'm quite confused because my TikToks get banned, but comments and hate messages on my TikToks are allowed.
So that we're standing with Israel at this, and the people of Israel who are going through this very, very traumatic experience.
What we saw in Sydney, people chanting "Gas the Jews." I'm terrified when I see these marches through the city shouting "From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free," which frankly is code for the destruction of Israel. And I think it's time we started calling this out.
The majority of the Israelis have any sort of ill will towards the people of Gaza. And you know, obviously, as much as I want a quiet night for my kids, I want a quiet night for the children of Gaza. The conflict is not against the people of Gaza. The conflict is against Hamas. And Hamas is the proscribed terrorist organisation in our own country, in America, in a number of other countries. That's what people are angry about.
Dr. Moshe Fachi travelled from Israel to attend the Frontline Mental Health Conference only to learn he was no longer welcome.
The founder and the head of the Stress, Trauma and Resilience Studies in the Department of Social Work was disinvited from a mental health conference in the Gold Coast.
And so we're outraged. This is a conference that's organised by mental health practitioners for mental health practitioners, and they're succumbing to intimidation and bullying. What kind of message does this send? He wasn't cancelled because of anything that he said or did, because of his identity as a Jew, as an Israeli.
The idea of flagging now, just 6 months after the October 7th, it's just entirely counterproductive and unrealistic to be talking about recognition of a Palestinian state. What, I think that our government and all Western governments should be doing at the moment is standing by very clearly Israel's right to defend itself and to remove Hamas from power. We can't say turn a blind eye to corruption and misuse of funds. Mary Kostakidis recently shared a call by Hassan Nasrallah, the Secretary General of Hezbollah, a prescribed terrorist organisation in Australia, for Jews to be ethnically cleansed from the river to the sea. Alon's complaint to the Australian Human Rights Commission is unlawful racial vilification in breach of Section 18C of the Racial Discrimination Act.
I ruled that out. I'm the only candidate for Prime Minister seeking a government in our own right, and there'll be no deals with the Greens.
And the day in the Arava, where they've taken in over 2,000 evacuees whose homes and communities were destroyed on October 7th. I learned about the difficulties of absorbing the children into the school system. Many others in Israel have taken on the responsibility of helping their brothers and sisters. A resident of the kibbutz showed us around where his sister was brutally murdered. We will never forget the massacre that took place here, but we will rebuild.
I was very, very privileged to be in Israel a few weeks ago as part of the ZFA Young Leaders Mission, and the spirit and the resilience of the Israeli people and how they just bounced back is honestly something that needs to be studied.
The ZFA's mission is to build a thriving Jewish community in Australia that's deeply connected to Israel. We do this in a range of different ways around our 3 key pillars, which are leadership, advocacy and connection. Over the past 6 months, we've been working quite tirelessly for our community and for the State of Israel.
We stand firmly with Israel and its right to defend itself and its citizens as we pray for peace.
We gather together because we are one community with broken hearts but raised voices. We say, Anachnu kulanu Israelim ha'erev. We are all Israelis tonight.
I am comforted by the support our community has received from the overwhelming majority of the Australian public. I am comforted by the moral clarity demonstrated by our political leaders here today. To the people of Israel, together the Jewish people will prevail.
Anti-Semitism around the world has been on the rise, and our Jewish students on campus have felt it more than ever. Today we're here to reclaim our spaces of social cohesion, of tolerance, of celebrate their Jewish identity.
Today we are going to call for release of the hostages. We're going to call for this prescribed terrorist organisation to be removed from power.
Given us a lot of hope about the way that we can move forward and create a stronger community.
Kibbutzim are a wonderful invention which we now understand. The community, the togetherness, the support, the solidarity. It shows for generations to come the strength of the kibbutz.
From my perspective, that was a very, very clear call. The next day they said, please come in tomorrow. So I've been now 133 days in uniform. I could not imagine being or doing anything else.
History's oldest prejudice, its oldest hatred, anti-Semitism, is growing and spreading in Australia in a way we've never seen before. It must be confronted It must be called out, and it must stop.
This is a difficult day amidst dire times. Be strong and of good spirit.
Our community is only strong because of its institutions. Is that there are 12,000 of us here right now. That's what matters. And we are proud Australian Jews. Am Yisrael Chai.
I'm proud to be Israeli Air Force veteran who defend my people and my nation.
Am Yisrael Chai.
So today is a day to remember, to reflect and to recommit. May God comfort you among the mourners of Zion and Jerusalem. Am Yisrael Chai.
My dad lost his brother 20 years ago in Gaza. When the war started, he called me.
בקרוב תזרח השמש, נדע ימים יפים מאלה, הלב נלחם בדאגות. כולם יחזרו הביתה, נחכה להם למטה, הלוואי נדע בשורות טובות. כי עם הנצח לעולם לא מפחד, אפילו כשקשה לראות. כולם ביחד, אף אחד פה לא בודד, שישרפו המלחמות.
It must be called out for what it is, and it must be stopped.
It's just as simple as that.
Bring them home now!